Hey Peter, well in a week where you could have been mistaken for, worrying about what John Fury was saying to Jake Paul and the rather unedifying spectacle that was, we finished the week with the most amazing spectacle of boxing. Just a wonderful fight and also a wonderful fairy tale within it, and one of those things you watch and think, this is why I love boxing so much, this is why it's the greatest sport in the world. So it was the Teofimo Lopez against George Kombosos Jr. fight. They're both juniors incidentally because their dads are named exactly the same, so it's Teofimo Lopez Jr. and George Kombosos Jr. and both of them are trained by those respective fathers. So, it was interesting coming into this fight. But to be honest, we didn't expect that much of this fight. To give you a little bit of the history of where this has come from, 16 months ago, Teofimo Lopez had that amazing victory over the legend that was Lomachenko. The legend fell, and we thought another great fighter had been born. And the really exciting thing was, in that lightweight division, Ryan Garcia had just beaten Luke Campbell and looked fantastic. You also had Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis. So, with those four, and Lomachenko really is the fifth, you had five guys at lightweight that looked like they were going to have a real sort of, argument to settle who was the best out of all of them, and it was going to be an amazing see. The lightweight division was going to catch fire. It never really happened. 2 weeks after, incidentally, Teofimo Lopez dethroned Lomachenko. George Kombosos Jr. boxed Lee Selby and won on a split decision over 12 rounds. It wasn't a hugely exciting fight. That put him as the IBF #1 mandatory contender to Teofimo Lopez. Really, nobody but the IBF ranked Kombosos as #1. Independent rankings, like the Boxing News rankings, had him ranked about #8, which seemed about right. But the fight was made for him to defend that. And in a way, I think a lot of us saw that as Teofimo taking a sort of maybe a mark in time fight, although that'd be a dangerous thing to think. As we know, while he was waiting for these big matchups at lightweight to materialise, to sign and cement his #1 status. So the Kombosos matchup was made. Lopez wanted to move away from Top Rank after the Loma fight. The Triller bought the fight. There were lawsuits, there were delays, there was all sorts of rubbish that went on, and finally Matchroom picked it up, and Matchroom put it on Saturday night in New York, and it proved to be an amazing fight. There was a lot of bad blood in the build-up. There was a lot of to and froing. Kombosos did seem to have this unshakable self-belief, which was obviously coming up against Teofimo's justifiable confidence. Teofimo kept saying, I'm going to knock him out in the first round, and he justifiably also said he's never been in with anyone like me, he's never tasted anything like my power, and I'm going to stop him in the first round. Kombosos seemed to go out to deliberately antagonise Lopez and really get in his face. And incidentally, even though these two were going at each other in the presses, it was the dads who were really, having the bigger arguments and looking like they were almost going to come to blows. And I've got to say, Kombosos Jr.'s dad is quite an Aussie character who you can't help but like. But yeah, so that it was really kicking off in that way. Kombosos, in a way, seemed to get what he wanted. He was saying, look, I'm living rent-free in his head. I'm loving it. He was winding up Lopez, obviously trying to make him come out, go for that knockout, and boy, did that work. Because when that first bell went, Lopez went hunting straight away. I'm going to impose myself. I'm going to just get this guy out of there. I'm going to let him taste the full power that he's never tasted before. So Lopez was hunting. Kombosos was backing off, using the ring very cleverly, as he did throughout the fight. He obviously had a game plan which he stuck to and which worked. He was never near the ropes. He was always pivoting off as soon as he got near to get himself space, moving backwards while Lopez came after him, looking for those big bombing shots, and he countered very well, Kombosos. But to be honest, you did look at that first round, the first couple of minutes, you were thinking, this isn't going to last long. And, Lopez is going to do what he said he's going to do, and he's going to get Kombosos out of there. Then the counters were coming in, but they didn't look hard. Then a short chopping counter towards the end of the round, and Lopez went down. Flash knockdown. Got up again, came out for the second, a little bit more measured in his attack, but still looking, to get Kombosos out of there. But, again, like I say, Kombosos came into this fight with tremendous self-belief. We didn't think it was justified because, I said he'd beat Lee Selby on that split decision 16 months ago. The only other top fighter he'd ever fought was Mickey Bay, who he outputted on a split decision over 10 rounds. So, he hadn't mixed in the class of Lopez, and, we didn't think he was in that class, and we thought this step up, would prove quite difficult for him. But he grew, when you've got that self-belief, and then all of a sudden the guy can't get you out of there, and you take his shots, and your counters are working, and you put him down, even if it's for a flash knockdown, that self-belief solidifies, and it becomes your core. And that seemed to happen to Kombosos Jr. He seemed to come into the fight, he upped his punch rate, and that's really what Lopez needed to do, and he didn't. He sort of came after him, and when he realised he couldn't really get him out of there with one shot, he seemed to run out of ideas. That seemed, Kombosos' game plan was working, so he didn't need to change it. Lopez's game plan wasn't working, he didn't seem to adjust. To me, he kind of lost his way a bit in the middle round, and Kombosos really came into the fight. Like I say, the tactics were working. Lopez needed to get in and establish the jab and work the jab. He didn't. Kombosos was doing that. Then he did, rally again, and really towards the end of the 8th, he started to come on very strong. He came on very strong at the end of the 8th. He won the 9th. In the 10th, he managed to put Kombosos down again. And then to come back from that, and this again shows the character and self-belief of Kombosos, he came back and won the 11th. To me, it was all even after 10. Kombosos won the 11th. It was a very even 12th round, but I gave it to Kombosos. I made him the winner by 2 rounds. And so did 2 of the other judges, 1 other judge going for Lopez. So it was a split decision win for Kombosos, an absolute fairy tale for the guy. But like I say, the king of Australia, I think the greatest away win by an Australian fighter. He did amazingly. And like I say, this father and son team have got a great story. He was a good rugby league player, Kombosos. He decided to pack in rugby league when he was 14 and throw it all in with boxing. He was doing both sports. And then finally, he got picked, I think, for their rugby league team. The Sharks, a big team in Australia. And the training days were the same as his boxing days. He decided to pack in rugby league and go boxing. And now it's led to this. It's led to him sitting right on top of the lightweight division. And like I say, the king of Australia. It's a fantastic story. It was an amazing fight. It's really worth going back and watching it if you haven't seen it already. So where do they go from here? Unfortunately as well, it was a close fight. I had Kombosos winning, like I say, slightly. I don't really think it was a draw. I think the right man won. But unfortunately, Lopez was adamant in the ring that he had won the fight. Clearly, his father was adamant after the fight that he had won the fight, clearly saying that he thought that Lopez had won 10 of 12 rounds. That wasn't really the opinion of people ringside. I thought, the crowd kind of booed him a bit when he was saying that he had won the fight. But Kombosos Jr. conducted himself very well, as did his dad. But I suppose in a way you could say it's easy to conduct yourself well in victory, but they did. Where there was a bit of bad blood there, but where they go from here, Lopez's father, anyway, was immediately talking they're not staying around at 135 anymore. Interestingly enough, we live in the era of rematches. We live in the era where the rematch clause is always built in by the champion, and it kind of slows down the matchups that we really want to see. But in this case, there was no talk of a rematch. There seemed to be no desire from Lopez to rematch this. His father said, we've hung around at 135 too long. We're going to 140. It seemed to hint that maybe he thought he'd lost because of the weight, although he blamed the politics of boxing. But they're saying they're going up to 140. They'll fight in the spring, and then they're targeting Josh Taylor. Kombosos Jr., where does he go? The obvious fight is Devin Haney, to get the WBC belt and have absolutely every belt, because this was for the WBA, WBO, IBF, and Ring Magazine titles. Which Lopez had held. So now there's only the WBC belt, which is held by Devin Haney. So that would be the obvious fight to make. But as I've mentioned, those other names, Ryan Garcia will be looking at him. There's lots of other names out there, because I'll tell you this, even after that performance, a lot of people will think they can beat Kombosos Jr. A lot of people will still have the same impression of him. They'll say, look, he's now fought 3 top-level fighters, in Mickey Bay, Lee Selby, and Teofimo Lopez. He's beat them all in a split decision. And they'll be looking at that and saying, we reckon we can beat this guy. So I think the offers will come thick and fast, but let's hope he enjoys his time at the top of the tree. And a guy with a victory like that, will well rise to it. I know we did say that about Teofimo Lopez, and that's kind of the interesting thing as well. When Lopez, as I say, as the young lion came in and toppled Lomachenko, which none of us were expecting, kind of in a similar way with a great game plan that just worked. We all thought that was really the birth of the star. In a way, that kind of takes the shine, I think, a little bit away from Lomachenko's legacy, because, he was beaten by Lopez. Lopez was beaten by Kombosos, who had struggled to beat Lee Selby. So, I know it's a bit of A beats B beats C, but it kind of does, for me, blow open the lightweight division a bit. And we'll have to see, who eventually comes out top dog. Well, even though we were saying this 16 months ago, these guys have got to fight each other, and we'll find out. But it does take a little bit away from the Loma legacy for me. But really, the weekend belongs to Kombosos. Father and son, what a great team. What an amazing story. What an incredible fight. And again, one of those things that reminds you why you love boxing so much and why it's the greatest sport in the world. So, that was my weekend, Peter. It was fantastic, and looking forward to see what happens in the lightweight division now.